To understand the sheer magnitude of the struggle behind the legend, one must first understand the man who stood at its center. By the year 1959, John Wayne was not merely an actor. He had become a living monument, a towering figure of American masculinity and traditional values. Yet, behind the iconic swagger and the steady gaze, there was a man deeply troubled by the shifting tides of the world around him. The 1950s were drawing to a close, and a new era of cynicism was beginning to take root in Hollywood. The classic heroes Wayne had portrayed for decades were being replaced by darker, more conflicted figures. The Duke felt the ground shifting beneath his feet, and he knew that if he wanted his legacy to endure, he had to create something that would stand the test of time. This feeling of urgency, this need to leave a permanent mark on the landscape of cinema, is what leads us into the heart of his immortal journey. The news of June 11th, 1979, was a blow that felt like the falling of an old-growth oak tree in a silent forest. When the headlines flashed across the television screens of millions, "John Wayne is dead," it wasn't just a celebrity passing. It felt like a piece of the horizon had been permanently removed. But as the flags flew at half-mast from the docks of Newport Beach to the dusty streets of Monument Valley, a strange and powerful phenomenon began to take shape. The man, Marion Morrison, had finally found rest, but the entity known as the Duke was entering a new, even more influential phase of existence. In this 19th chapter of our exploration, we are not recounting a tragedy, we are documenting a transformation. We are looking at how a single human being managed to weave his essence into the very fabric of global storytelling so deeply that, decades later, his presence is still felt in every flickering frame of a Western movie. Let's look at the immediate aftermath of his departure. In the early 1980s, Hollywood was in a state of identity crisis. The studio system that Wayne had mastered was crumbling, and a new generation of filmmakers was obsessed with deconstructing the myths he had helped build. Critics at the time were quick to write the obituary of the Western genre. They claimed that without Wayne to anchor the trail, the cowboy would ride off into the sunset of obscurity. They argued that in a world of high-concept sci-fi and gritty urban dramas, there was no room for the man of simple honor. But they grossly underestimated the foundation John Wayne had laid. He hadn't just made movies. He had constructed a philosophical blueprint. He had defined what it meant to walk with purpose, to speak with authority, and to stand your ground when the easy path was to run. This blueprint didn't vanish. It simply waited for the next generation of storytellers to find it. The transition of the 1980s was fascinating. As we saw the rise of the modern action hero, the echoes of the Duke were everywhere. Whether it was the stoic silence of the muscle-bound icons of that era or the gritty determination of the lonely cop archetype, the DNA was unmistakably Wayne's. However, the true heir to the spiritual throne was Clint Eastwood. While Eastwood had started as the anti-Wayne, the cynical, nameless drifter, by the time he directed and starred in Pale Rider and Unforgiven, he was engaged in a deep, cinematic dialogue with Wayne's ghost. Eastwood wasn't just making westerns. He was grappling with the moral weight of being a legend. Every frame of those films served as a tribute to the standard Wayne had set. The torch hadn't been extinguished. It had been passed to a man who understood that being a hero meant carrying the weight of your past actions. We must also consider the cultural weight of the man outside the dark theaters. John Wayne had become a secular saint for those who valued tradition and strength. His face remained a fixture on magazine covers. His voice was the gold standard for every impersonator in every corner of the world, and his name became a shorthand for American resolve. His famous chosen epitaph, Fio, Fuerte y Formal, ugly, strong, and dignified, transcended the Spanish language to become a universal code of conduct. It was a reminder that life isn't about being pretty or being liked. It's about being solid. It's about being the person people can lean on when the storm hits. His yacht, the Wild Goose, continued to sail the Pacific, acting as a floating cathedral for his memories. Even today, when people see that ship, they don't just see a vessel. They see a piece of history that refused to sink. The 1990s and 2000s brought a new kind of immortality, digital preservation. As technology allowed us to clean the dust and scratches from old film reels, John Wayne's classics were reborn in vivid detail. When The Searchers, or Rio Bravo, were released in high definition, a new generation of film students and enthusiasts were struck by something they hadn't expected. They didn't see a dated actor. They saw a master of cinematic space. They saw a man who knew how to dominate a frame just by shifting his weight or tilting his hat. They began to realize that Wayne wasn't just playing himself. He was a calculated, brilliant performer who understood the camera better than almost anyone in history. This academic and technical resurgence ensured that his work wouldn't just be remembered as nostalgia, but studied as fine art. In our current era, we are witnessing what I like to call the Neo-Wayne Renaissance. Look at the massive success of series like Yellowstone or the epic westerns of Taylor Sheridan. These stories are built on the very ground John Wayne plowed. The themes of protecting the land, the complexity of family loyalty, and the struggle to maintain an old-world code in a modern, cynical society are pure Wayne. Kevin Costner's portrayal of John Dutton is, in many ways, a modern interpretation of what a Wayne character would look like today: older, weary, but fiercely unyielding. This proves that the appetite for the Duke-style hero isn't a product of the 1950s. It's a fundamental part of the human psyche. We want to believe there are men who cannot be bought, men who will not break, and men who know exactly who they are. But why does he endure so much more than his contemporaries? Why do we talk about Wayne differently than we talk about Gable, Cooper, or Stewart? It's because John Wayne became a bridge between the mythic past and the complicated present. He represented a version of ourselves that we all secretly hope exists, the version that isn't afraid. When we watch him walk across the screen in that rhythmic, purposeful stride, we aren't just watching a movie. We are watching a lesson in confidence. He taught us that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. He taught us that a man's word is his bond, and that some things, like family, honor, and freedom, are worth every drop of blood and sweat you can give. As we look toward the future of this channel and our exploration of his life, we realize that 20 episodes, or even 50, wouldn't be enough to exhaust the impact of this one life. We started this series thinking we were documenting a career, but we found ourselves documenting a legend that is still growing. Every time a new Western is filmed, every time an actor tries to convey grit, and every time a father tells his son about the importance of standing tall, John Wayne is there. He has moved beyond the celluloid. He has become a part of our shared language. He is the silhouette on the horizon that tells us we can make it through the desert. He is the voice in our heads that tells us to saddle up, even when we're tired. John Wayne didn't just leave behind a filmography of 170 films. He left behind a standard of excellence and a spirit of defiance. He fought the big studios, he fought the critics, he fought cancer, and in the end, he even fought time itself. And looking at the world today, it's clear who won that final battle. Time couldn't erase him. It only made his legend sharper, clearer, and more necessary. As the film grain flickers on our screens and the vintage dust of his trails rises once more, we are reminded that some men are simply too big for the earth to hold. They belong to the ages. I am Andrew, and as we wrap up this 19th chapter, I want you to remember that the trail doesn't end here. The legacy of the Duke is a living, breathing thing, and we are just getting started in uncovering its deepest secrets. We have more stories to tell, more films to analyze, and more of that iron will to explore. So, keep your boots polished and your eyes on the rising sun. Because as long as there is a story of honor to be told, John Wayne will be the one telling it. We'll see you at the next campfire, where the coffee is hot and the legends never sleep. Good night for now.